Wallace was booked into the Clay County Detention Center in West Point at 11:06 p.m. Saturday, then was discharged at 1:16 a.m. Sunday after posting an $813.50 bond. Why did I say cents? It's just cent bond, but you get what I'm trying to say. The West Point Sheriff's Office website lists the charge against Wallace as a first offense. Over 10 plus years ago, a quarterback did the impossible. He beat #1 ranked Alabama. What was even more miraculous in this upset victory over Alabama is nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody out here, gave this quarterback and his team even a shot to compete in the game, rather less win it. That is outside of Katy Perry, because she was a guest picker in College Game Day that day, which was in Oxford, Mississippi, and she did pick Ole Miss to beat Alabama, but come on now, we all know she wasn't going to pick against Ole Miss. You also got to throw in there another reason people were extremely doubtful on this young man leading his team to a victory over Alabama is due to the fact this is when Nick Saban and Alabama was in their prime. It took all of, and maybe some more, of your A+ effort in game to upset the Crimson Tide. And guess what? This young man did that. He had a pretty good game if you gotta ask me. 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. It didn't matter what he did before that game, after it was irrelevant. He was always going to be known as a quarterback that beat Alabama. Some people would even argue and say that he's an Ole Miss legend just for winning that game alone, and I don't blame you. But I don't want to discredit the rest of his playing career, because he had over 10,000 total yards in just 3 years at Ole Miss. What about that? That ranks 13th best in SEC history. Not too shabby. But whoa, hold on. I know what you're sitting here saying. Well, Matt, what's this guy's name? You haven't even told us, and my apologies. You're right. I should have told you his name by now. It's Bo Wallace. But here's the kicker with that. This picture you're now looking at right here, this is also Bo Wallace. If you can't tell what this picture is, it's a mugshot. And yeah, I think we can all agree here, not a good look. The mugshot comes back into play a little later in our video, so just remember that. Store that in the back of your memory, because we're going to get to it. Here's the real deal $1,000,000 question that everybody's been asking the past 10 years or so. What happened to Bo Wallace? I myself grew up watching this guy. He's a staple of SEC football. And for him to have that monumental win over Alabama, have over 10,000 total yards of offense, and for him now to fall off the face of the earth and nobody knows what happened to him or where he's at, yeah, it's intriguing. There's many other questions people have been asking about this guy even till this day. But however, it all circles back to the one, and I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Bo Wallace? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you having a great and fantastic day. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. And man, oh man, major shout out to Bama Prods. He's back at it. He can't miss. He recommended a video only like, what was it, a week or two ago? And here he is again, got another recommendation. What about that, man? What about that? Greatly appreciate the recommendation. As most of you know, your boy Matt is a fan of the people, and I want to give the people what they want. It's as simple as that. If you have any video recommendations for story videos, documentaries, whatever you want to call them, videos like this, feel free to leave a comment down below, and who knows, we might make that video. You guys have really seemed to enjoy this docu-series. We've been doing it in the off-season to pass the time by, and that's great because I enjoy making the videos as well, so it's a win-win. Hope you guys are as excited to get into this video as I am, and two, I forget to throw this in there, but if you are enjoying these videos, consider subscribing to the channel because it helps us out tremendously. Simple as that. I've jibber-jabber enough though. Strap in, buckle up, get your snack, get your popcorn, get your favorite meal you like to when you watch a video, because trust me, I do the same thing. But alright, Matt, blah, blah, shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Woo! Man, oh man, we got good old Bo Wallace. And come on, man. You already know, to get into his story, we got to throw it all the way back to where things started. Mr. Bo Wallace grew up in Pulaski, Tennessee, and played his high school football for no other than Giles County. Ironically enough, your boy Matt is extremely familiar with this area because I grew up in a city that is located in northern Alabama, but it's really on the state line of Alabama and Tennessee. And Pulaski, Tennessee, in his high school, which is Giles County, that is in southern Tennessee, so only about 30-45 minutes away. I even remember playing Giles County in basketball, so there's your useless fun fact for the day. As far as it goes for Bo's high school career, he was electric to say the least. He led Giles County High School to a 4A state title and had a 14-game winning streak at one point in time. In his senior season, he had 3,287 passing yards with 37 passing touchdowns and 10 more on the ground, totaling up to 47 total touchdowns that season. He also set a state record for most total yards in a season with 4,195. When it was all said and done for his high school career, he had 8,778 total yards of offense. You would think after hearing all those amazing stats and numbers that Bo was a 4, maybe potentially 5-star recruit, but no. He wasn't any of that. He wasn't even sought after, not even to the slightest of bits. Not too many schools were going after Bo Wallace, whether that was because he didn't play for this big-time high school or maybe they just didn't like him. That's up for debate, and that's a mystery we're probably never going to solve. Here's what we do know, though. He did have one school that was interested, and that was Arkansas State. At the time, they were recruiting him pretty hard. He thought it'd be a good fit, so he signed with them. And that's always a part of his career that's always fascinated me. Most people think his story starts at Ole Miss, but it really doesn't. Things didn't work out so well at Arkansas State, so he decided to transfer to the infamous East Mississippi Community College. I say infamous because this is known as like the major JUCO college football school. They've been on Netflix, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That series is called Last Chance U. And for Bo Nix, I don't think it's wild to say this, yeah, that was his last chance. If he were to wet the bed there, that was going to be the end, or more than likely, that would have been the end of his football career. However, as you can probably guess here, he did not wet the bed, and he balled out. In the 2011 through 12 season, he went off. He had 53 passing touchdowns. I don't care what level you're playing at. NFL, college, high school, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA. 53 passing touchdowns in one season is unreal. He only played in 12 games, so just doing some basic math here, that's over 4 passing touchdowns per game. To go along with that, he had 4,604 passing yards, completed right at 67% of his passes. That's really good. The one downside, though, is he did have 14 interceptions. Normally, when you see a quarterback having 14 interceptions in 1 year, you're like, man, this guy's awful. His touchdown to interception ratio must be awful. But in this case and scenario, since Bo threw for so many touchdowns, it didn't look so bad. The more I look at it, the more this stat line reminds me of the gunslinger himself, Colt Brennan, who played at Hawaii. Always had a crazy amount of passing touchdowns, and yeah, he had double-digit interceptions almost every single year, but it didn't matter because he made up for it. Similar situation here, he balls out at EMCC, aka East Mississippi Community College, and he's one of the top JUCO prospects in that 2012 class. He was taking visits to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, their rival, Indiana, Baylor, and even Texas. Eventually, though, on January 10th in 2012, this is when he would officially sign with Ole Miss. Although he had a really good year at EMCC, he still wasn't this highly regarded player, and not too many people knew his name. Because remember, he wasn't this highly sought after recruit coming out of high school. Granted, he went off at EMCC like we already talked about. I've given him his flowers for that. But everybody still had the mentality of, oh yeah, well, he had a really good season, but that's JUCO ball. Let's see him doing it at the Power 5. Oh yeah, too, I almost forgot to throw this in there. There was also conversations going around, can this guy even win the starting job at Ole Miss? He gets to Ole Miss, he's battling it out in the practices and all throughout the offseason. He's looking really good. So Hugh Freeze, the head coach of Auburn now, but back then he was at Ole Miss, he names Bo Wallace as a starting quarterback for the 2012 season. As far as it goes for Ole Miss in that year, they had some ups, but they also had their fair share of downs. In Bo's first game as a starter, he was really efficient. 20 for 24, you'll take that. 264 through the air, 2 touchdowns, only 1 INT. Had 13 carries for 82 yards as well and a touchdown on the ground. Can't ask for much more. However, it was against, I mean this respectfully, Central Arkansas. The following week on September 8th in 2012, Ole Miss, they beat UTEP 28-10. So they're starting out the season 2-0. Sure, you didn't play the stiffest of competition I've ever seen, but it doesn't matter how you get to 2-0. You're 2-0, you're there. On September 15th, though, this is when Ole Miss faced their real deal first test. They played Texas. They got blown out, and I mean absolutely blown out of the waters. Texas put up a 66 burger on them. What about that? And won by 35 points. The entire team struggled, but both struggled mightily. 13 for 24 with 1 touchdown to 3 INTs. QBR of an abysmal 14.8. You hate to see that. A couple weeks later, on September 29th in 2012, Ole Miss, they'd have another tough test. They had to go to Bryant-Denny Stadium and play number 1 ranked Alabama. Alabama won this game on cruise control, 33-14. Bo, struggled again. He had 0 touchdowns to 2 INTs. By this point in time, you're probably starting to pick up on the pattern of things. Ole Miss is 3-2. Against the not-so-good teams, Bo Wallace, he's really good. Against the really good teams, not so much. After a 19-point loss to Alabama on the road, Ole Miss did have A&M at home, in which they lost 30-27. The struggles for Bo did continue, 20 for 34, 300 yards. That's okay, but yet again, the interceptions. 2 interceptions in an SEC game, not a recipe for success. It also didn't help that A&M had one of the most electrifying quarterbacks we've ever seen at the collegiate level, Johnny Manziel. We all know the Johnny football lore and his story, so no need to divulge into all of that. By this point in time in the season, though, we're 6 games through. Ole Miss was 3-3, And Ole Miss fans aren't really sure what to think about this guy. And by this guy, I'm talking about their quarterback. Yeah, he's beating the teams he's supposed to beat, but when we're playing Alabama, the Texases, and Texas A&Ms of the world, he's not performing so well. Did he make some good throws in the Texas, Alabama, and A&M game? Yes, he did. But he also made some really, and I mean really bad ones. In just those 3 ball games against Texas, Alabama, and A&M, he had 7, count them, 7 interceptions. We all know this. If you're losing games and your starting quarterback isn't taking particularly good care of that football, he's going to start catching some heat. Fast forward in time here on October 13th, this is when Ole Miss, they'd match up with Auburn. I know most people are going to look at this and say, oh, Matt, well, this game's not a big deal, but I think it is. If he'd have went out there and laid an egg against Auburn, I don't know if he would have started another football game at Ole Miss. That was almost a must-win situation for Ole Miss and a must-play good situation for Bo Nix. I mean, not Bo Nix. Whoa. I said Bo Nix. My apologies. Bo Wallace. 17 for 22. That's amazing. 236 passing yards, 1 touchdown. But here's the key factor. 0 interceptions. The thing with Bo Wallace is, and you're going to continue to see it all throughout this video, if he was taking care of the ball, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. It's when he started making some stupid decisions and passes and throwing those costly interceptions to where it had you sitting on your couch thinking, man, how is this guy even starting in the Southeastern Conference? Ole Miss wins that game convincingly. Then they go onto the road and they face Arkansas. Arkansas also didn't have a really great team that year, so it was also a game in which Ole Miss, I'd say, needed to win. Bo Wallace goes in there, has another solid game, 29 for 37. You'll take that. 278, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my memory could be a little foggy here, but Ole Miss won that game on a walk-off field goal, and I think the kicker's name was Bryson Rose. Anyways, though, what I do know is Ole Miss, they win this game, and they're sitting at a pretty 5-3, all things considered. But then old Bo Wallace and Ole Miss go on a pretty bad losing streak, 3-game losing streak at that. They lose to Georgia by 27 points, lose to Vanderbilt. Yikes, by 1 point. Never like to see a loss to Vanderbilt in the column. And they lose to number 7th ranked Ole Miss, 41-35. They do end the year on a high note. They win the Egg Bowl, and they beat Pittsburgh in a bowl game, 38-17. As you can see, Ole Miss, they finished that season, 2012 yet again, 7-6. Now, I want you to look at this not from the perspective of 2024. When I say that, here's what I mean. When you think of Ole Miss football for the past 3 to 4 years, yeah, you think the bar is, oh yeah, they should win at bare minimum 9 or 10 games a year. That would be considered a good season. Anything lower, oh yeah, that's a disappointment. But for back then, Ole Miss fans weren't too upset. I'm not saying they were okay with it, but they weren't upset with a new quarterback going 7-6. Whereas now, I know they don't have a new quarterback coming in. They got Jackson Dart returning. But let's just say if Lane Kiffin in 2025 or 2026 goes 7-6, oh yeah, they're going to want that man fired. But back then, Camus has this enough. It wasn't the end-all, be-all going 7-6. Fast forward in time here in 2013, nothing changes. Bo Wallace is still your starting quarterback for the Ole Miss Rebels. To start that season, Ole Miss, they got revenge on Vanderbilt starting out the year 1-0, won 39-35, and Bo Wallace, he played really good. He threw the ball nearly 50 times, completed a decent amount of them, and he didn't even have a touchdown, but here was the great part about his game and his performance. He didn't have an interception either. Had a quarterback rating of 86.6, and that is most certainly going to get the job done. Although he didn't have a passing touchdown, he did have 2 rushing touchdowns, so that was nice to see. They then match up with a cupcake game. They win that 31-13, and they got the rematch against Texas. Now remember, in the recent year, 2012, Texas hung up a 66 burger on their noggin and beat them by 35 points. And this year, Ole Miss had to travel to Texas and play them. What does Ole Miss do? They return the favor. They beat the crap out of them on their home field, 44-23. It goes back to this, though. This Ole Miss team, all throughout Bo's career, they win as far as Bo would take them. You'll notice, if he had a good game, Ole Miss normally won. If he had a bad game, they had no shot of winning. 17 for 25 on the road, that's going to get the job done. 2 touchdowns to circle it. 0 INTs, QBR of rounded up to 91. Bo Wallace has his Ole Miss team sitting pretty. They're 3-0, but they had to face, guess who? Number 1 ranked, Alabama. There's not too much to say for this game itself, just due to the fact Ole Miss had 0 chance of winning, because last time I checked, if you don't even score 1 point, you can't win a football game. I will show you Bo's stats, though. He went 17 for 31, buck 50 through the air, 0 touchdowns, 0 INTs. Ole Miss's offense, they struggled mightily against Alabama, but come on, man. Whose offense back then didn't struggle with that Alabama defense? After the Bama game, things didn't go so well. They lost to Auburn on the road, and then they lost to top 10 A&M, who still at the time had Johnny Manziel. Some good news, though. Bo Wallace did upset 6th-ranked LSU 27-24. In this ball game, Bo went 30 for 39, had 350 passing yards and a QBR right at 88. Next thing you know, you look up, Ole Miss, they ring off 4 straight. Beat LSU, beat Idaho, beat Arkansas, and beat Troy. 7-3 heading into the Missouri and Mississippi State game, in which they lost both of those, and now they're back on a losing streak. They go into the bowl game, in which they play Georgia Tech. They win that in the Music City Bowl, and they finish the season 8-5. Not too shabby. Not good, but it was all right. It was the next season in which Ole Miss was supposed to have a really good year, because this is Bo's 3rd year as a starting quarterback. In 2012, you went 7-6. In 2013, you went 8-5. It's like, all right, it's time for us to take that leap, and which they did. In the legendary 2014 season for the Ole Miss Rebels, they start out with Boise State. Win that game 35-13. They then destroy Vanderbilt. They win the cupcake game. They win another cupcake game. They're 4-0, sitting pretty, with a matchup with guess who? Alabama. Ole Miss at the time was ranked 11th in the nation. They're 4-0, and they're hosting number 1 Alabama. Some, and you'll see it on the screen right here according to ESPN, they had Alabama at number 3. I'm not too sure whose rankings they were using, because on all the other things I looked at, and even I'll show you a screenshot right here, they have Alabama number 1. For the sake of this video, I'm saying Bama's number 1 because when I rewatched the game getting ready for this video, they had Alabama with a number 1 ranking beside their name. Getting back on track here, like I was saying, this game was so big, it was so monumental, so important, that College Game Day, they went to it. I remember vividly as well, nobody was giving Ole Miss a shot to win this game. And why would you? Like I told you guys in the intro, the only person to pick Ole Miss to win this game, ironically enough, was the guest picker, Katy Perry. As we all know, though, no spoilers here. If you remember Bo Wallace, it's for this game and this game only. Ole Miss upsets Alabama 23-17 on a game-ending interception in the end zone. I remember that game-sealing play because it looked like for a second there, Blake Sims, the quarterback for Bama, threw a perfect pass to whoever it was. I think it was a tight end. But the Ole Miss defender came out of nowhere and picked it off, and he got a foot in the end zone, too. That was crazy because at the time, they actually ruled it as an incomplete pass, but they reversed it. Oh, yeah, too, here's another fun fact for you, for your Ole Miss fans. You know who was the offensive coordinator back then? Your current head coach, Lane Kiffin. The defense for Ole Miss in this ballgame, they had a good showing, and the offense for Ole Miss, although they only scored 23 points, I don't want that to be deceiving. They did their part. And you want to know who really did their part in this game? Bo freaking Wallace. I don't even think these stats do his performance any justice because he did everything he was supposed to do. He didn't make any mistakes. 18 for 31, 250 through the air, 3 touchdowns to 0 INTs. He did what any and every quarterback had to do if you wanted to beat a Nick Saban-led Alabama team. You had to play a flawless and a perfect game. He did just that. Bo Wallace leads Ole Miss to victory. They stormed the field. They're tearing down the goalposts. It was one of the biggest wins in Ole Miss history. Maybe the biggest win even to this day. I can't emphasize it enough. That game was really known as the Bo Wallace game because leading up into it, for 2.5 years, dang near, Ole Miss fans didn't know how to feel about the guy. Yeah, he showed you flashes of greatness, but he also showed you reasons as to why he shouldn't even probably be a D1 quarterback. You hear people say, oh yeah, well this guy's had an up and down career or up and down season, but no. That is what Bo Wallace had. He was always up and down. You didn't know week by week what version of Bo Wallace you was going to get, and that's why he was so exciting to watch. For example, what made Johnny Football so fun to watch is you didn't know what kind of crazy play or Houdini act he was going to pull off next. But what made Bo Wallace so fun to watch is you didn't know if he was going to throw for 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was the Bo Wallace experience, and I think my Ole Miss fans, they can vouch for me in the comment section. Fortunately enough, though, he got hot at the right time. Ole Miss is 5-0 after that Alabama victory. They then go to College Station, beat A&M, and they're 6-0. They then play Tennessee, beat them, and they're 7-0. In 2012 and 2013, Ole Miss is barely winning 7-8 games a year. And now we're talking about, well, dang, is Ole Miss a playoff team? Because remember, this is when the playoff first started in 2014. Them making the playoffs got shut down fairly quickly, though. In the Cinderella season, it came to an end. After the 7-0 start, they did lose to LSU, 24th ranked LSU at that, 10-7. You want to know what happened in that game? I'm just going to label it as this, the Bo Wallace experience. Didn't even complete 50% of his passes, had a $175 through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. I'm not solely putting the loss on him, but, you know, when the offense only puts up 7 points, you kind of got to. It wasn't a good showing for the Ole Miss team, but hey, it's only one loss. You're still 7-1. You still got a chance to make the playoff. The following week, though, they faced Auburn, in which they lost that game 35-31. Bo Wallace had a pretty good showing, 28 for 40, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns to 0 INTs. But at the end of the day, they lost the game, and that put a nail in the coffin for their playoff chances. To put the cherry on top of things, and this is why it was such a weird season, because they started out 7-0, they had the huge Alabama win, and then they lose to Arkansas 30-0. Not trying to disrespect Arkansas here, but that was a head scratcher. And also, I believe without even checking, Bo Wallace had 2 interceptions in that game. They do win the Egg Bowl, so that was a good way to end the regular season. But then, another head scratcher, they lose in their bowl game to TCU 42-3. In Bo Wallace's final collegiate football game, he was 10 for 23, had 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and one of the lowest QBRs I've ever seen in my life, a 3.1. For those of you that don't know, QBR is based on a scale of 1 through 100, 50 being average. So 3.1, yeah, you can kind of figure out that's not good. I know it looks really bad on paper. You lost 2 of your final 3 games by 30-plus points. But from an outsider's perspective, I never got the feeling vibes that Ole Miss fans even cared about it. I think all they cared about in that 2014 season is, hey, we beat Alabama finally. We won that big-time game, and that's all that matters. And I don't blame you for feeling that way because that was a legendary moment. And maybe some Ole Miss fans feel differently. That's totally fine. You're entitled to feel how you want, and you're entitled to your own opinion. But looking back on this, these last 3 games, I think it sums up the Bo Wallace experience to a T. You lose to an unranked team by 30 points. You beat the 4th-ranked team in the country 31-17 by 14 points. And then you lose another game by 40 points. Bo Wallace was your starting quarterback for 3 full years, and I think these 3 last games summed up all those 3 years combined. As far as it goes for his season statistics, let's take a look at them. In 2012, completed 64% of his passes, had 3,000 yards with 22 touchdowns to a very bad 17 interceptions. Not good. In 2013, completed 65% of his passes, had 3,400 passing yards, rounding it up here, had 18 touchdowns to 10 INTs. So it did clean up the interceptions, but had fewer touchdowns. In his final and last season as a college quarterback, he only completed 60% of his passes, so a big drop off there, nearly 5%. Only had 3,200 passing yards with 22 touchdowns to 14 INTs. What I'm gathering from this is all these years are they're not quite the same, but they're almost like a carbon copy paste. When you're looking at the grand scheme of things for an entirety of a season, he never really got better. He never progressed as a quarterback. After that 2014 season wrapped up, he declared for the 2015 NFL Draft. To nobody's surprise whatsoever, he did go undrafted. However, the Kansas City Chiefs did invite him out for a tryout. They decided to not offer him a contract, and I know it's abrupt here, but that was the end of his professional football career. And when I say that was the end, it's kind of ironic here because it never really started. It never got off the ground. He did not even play a down or didn't even really join a team in the NFL. Shortly after, in 2016, this is when Wallace announced that he was going to be the quarterback coach at Marshall County High School. This wasn't for some odd reason, because at the time, that's where his younger brother was the quarterback. The following year, in 2017, he joined his former college, East Mississippi Community College, EMCC, and announced he was going to be the team's quarterback coach there. In the summer of 2017, this is where this picture right here, it comes back into play. Listen to this story. So Bo Wallace was hosting a youth football camp in which he's done in previous years. Well, he gets done with his camp, right? And only a couple hours after his youth football camp, he gets arrested on DUI charges. It was stated that Wallace took prescription medication during the day Saturday, then fell asleep at the wheel while driving home. He was arrested by West Point police following the accident. Wallace was booked into the Clay County Detention Center in West Point at 11:06 p.m. Saturday, then was discharged at 1:16 a.m. Sunday after posting an $813.50 bond. Why did I say cents? It's just cent bond, but you get what I'm trying to say. The West Point Sheriff's Office website lists the charge against Wallace as a first offense. So yeah, that's really all there is to be said about that. Definitely interesting. So what I'm gathering from this is, I guess he fell asleep behind the wheel. Next thing you know, he wakes up and he's getting arrested. Obviously, I'm not excusing his behavior, not to the slightest of bits, but he messed up and he made one mistake. And it looks like he's learned from it because I haven't seen anything like this since then come up. 3 years later in 2020, he was hired as a co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Pearl River Community College. After that, in November 2021, he was hired as a quarterbacks coach at Holmes Community College. Last but not least, and this is where he remains even till this day, Bo Wallace was named as the offensive coordinator and admissions assistant at the University School of Jackson, which is located in Jackson, Tennessee. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Well, Matt, I guess that's the end of our story here. But like Lee Corso says, not so fast, my friend. So Bo Wallace, he has a slight problem with trolls on Twitter. And when I say slight problem, it's to the point where he argues with Randeezies all the time. It even got to the point where he has stated, as you see right here, I relish in the hate. Yeah, that's fascinating to say the least, but check this out. Only a few months ago in November 2023, this is when Bo Wallace challenged a coffeehouse employee to a fight at the Egg Bowl. This is where he told this account on Twitter to meet him at section 23 of the stadium. Why did he say meet me in this section of the stadium? Because that's where he was sitting. This coffee account replied to it, I love that I'm getting to you. You still have a lot of emotions from losing, don't you? Bo Wallace quote tweeted it, nah, I think it's hilarious you want to tweet me but won't come to, in all caps, my seat. Just come to section 23, seat 28, and Twitter don't matter anymore. Show me what you're about. I read all these tweets so you didn't got to. This banter went back and forth for, at bare minimum, 20 to 30 different tweets. It was just nothing more but Bo Wallace saying, hey, come fight me, and then this other account just doing what Twitter trolls do. And if you go to Bo's Twitter, it seems like every couple of months, he has an interaction like this for some odd reason. And when I say it's for some odd reason, it's because, like my man, Bo, if you're somehow somewhat seeing this video, why do you even give them attention? You know that's what they want. And I know his rebuttal to that would be, well, Matt, I'm just having fun with them. I'm just trolling them back. And I get it, but I just feel like sometimes you gotta let stuff go. He's even went back and forth with his own fan base in Ole Miss. This is one of the more recent things that has transpired. So an Ole Miss account, I assume a fan account, released building the perfect Ole Miss quarterback. Bo Wallace quote tweeted and said, I know this is all in fun, so don't misconstrue like I'm in my feelings, but dang, I play on a shoulder that got reconstructed and a broken ankle and I can't get an honorable mention toughness? Tough crowd. Somebody replied to it, you talk about mental toughness, but you're upset because your picture wasn't on his graphic? Doesn't seem mentally tough to me. Bo responded, I'm not even giving you energy, bro. I just said it was fun and games. Do you actually read the tweet? There was more of this banter and back and forth for at least 15, 20, 25 tweets. I'm not even going to waste your time with it. I think you get the point. Bo Wallace actively, even till this day, he gives these trolls on Twitter attention. Well, not even trolls in this case. He's going back and forth with his own fan base in Ole Miss, and he's slightly upset. I think that's fair to say, because if you quote tweet it, you got to be upset that he wasn't on some Ole Miss quarterback list. With all that being said, though, that is our abrupt ending to our story. Like it says right here in his bio, he is still the quarterback's coach and offensive coordinator for USJ. Seems like things are going good for him. That's great. And to Bo Wallace, like I said, if you're somehow, some way seeing this video, I'm wishing the best of luck, brother, and I hope you continue to see a lot of success. I can't speak for y'all, though. I can only speak for myself. Anytime and every time I hear the name Bo Wallace, I will always think about that legendary win he had over Alabama. I'm curious, though. Let me know your thoughts down below. But